with our panel discussion on the topic Sugar Rush, Global Sugar Supply and Demand. And I hand over to our moderator, Mr. Kiran. Over to you.
Hello. Thank you, Claudiu. Very interesting presentation. But I have a very simple question. I'm a miller in Maharashtra. When should I export my sugar now? I have up to September to do it. Should I do it immediately? Should I wait for a few months or should I wait right till September? When do you think, as an Indian miller, will I get the best price for my sugar? Because I understand all of this, but as an Indian miller, I only know the Indian market. I really don't know what's happening outside. And all these numbers and graphs and all don't make too much sense to me as an Indian miller. So I want to understand from you, tell me when should I sell my sugar for exports?
You know, things are more complicated than this, because Brazil will start producing and they will come with plenty of sugar from May on, okay? May, June, July, to be plenty of Brazilian, if things go well. So I would say, try to export it now before the middle of May. Another thing is, after Brazil will come with the raws, because they are mainly a raw sugar player, we will see also a kind of a spike in white premium. So what you lose now, you might gain in form of a white premium that time. But I don't think that the gain will be much more than what you can get now for your sugar. And then if you do it, if you export it to Africa, they still pay a healthy cash premium on top of the FOB levels. So I would say, give it now up until the middle of May, sorry.
Okay, thank you. I would now request each panelist to give his views on Claudiu's numbers and things like that. So I'll start with Kapil.
Well, I am, especially I will start from the Brazilian numbers. Last time when we discussed these numbers in India was around the ISMA conference when, we saw that Brazilian crush for 25-26 was more or less expected below 600 million and production of more or less around 40 million tons. We're seeing already a 2 million ton surplus getting added from the Brazilian crop. But, to balance it out, the Thai numbers are looking a little down, especially with the cane burning issues which are going around. So, more or less, I guess as we go forward and as we always seen the balance sheet evolving, seems with the Indian decision of exporting whatever surplus was available in the balance sheet, I guess the global flows will also get automatically adjusted, where the surplus of Brazil gets placed in terms of their raws and whites mix and in the regions, and automatically we create a space where we already have an intuition that there's a good planting in Maharashtra, Karnataka going on, so there might be a very decent Indian export campaign which can happen next year, taking into account a max ethanol diversion which can happen. So that can create a space, and automatically the trade flows, I do believe, will have that space. Even though we look like a surplus, but within the Indian subcontinent there will be a Indian space for the Indian sugar to get placed.
Okay, Deepinder. But before I move to Deepinder, there's a very interesting thing that Kapil just told me before we started, that all the four panelists have at some time or the other worked in Louis Dreyfus with with only one now. Vamsi is the only one working now, but at some point of their career, they've all worked in Louis Dreyfus. Yeah, okay, Deepinder, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Kiran. I'm going forward to what Kapil has said. It's what the way we see it, like instead of extra sugar coming out of Brazil, it will be India for 25-26 season and beyond because of the crop. It will be more of regional exports from India rather than South America, sorry, bringing it to Asia.
Vamsi.
Sorry, no, my thought was more on the Indian crop for the next season, 25-26, wherein you were showing a delta of almost 7.5 million tons year on year. I mean, your current estimates are 31.7. You're pretty much looking at a crop north of 38 gross production. I mean, before ethanol diversion, and ethanol diversion of 6.5. When it's more a question, than a thought, it's that we have not seen. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. And have you seen this kind of delta? I mean, over the years, I have not seen a 7 million delta on the crop year on year in India. What are the factors that are making you think about that kind of a jump on the Indian crop? I mean, 5 to 6 million has been the highest we have seen year on year increase on the sucrose production. Anything in particular that you could mention?
I think we can share also with the panel, because I don't want to monopolize this discussion, but I will present my point here. The acreage is amazing in India. It's an amazing acreage. Then the thing is, like this year we had a bad crop with other bad indications. Okay, we don't discuss flowering and other things that impacted the crop. So if you work with normal weather circumstances and based on the acreage that was any normal monsoon, okay, then probably 33 million tons will be. And then you talk about the past. The past is the past. We cannot say, okay, if we didn't see this in the past, we don't see it in the future.
Okay, thank you. Now I'll start asking each one of you a different question. I'll start with Vamsi. What are, in your opinion, the few major factors that impact world prices? I mean, we saw when we started off before our exports, New York and London came down, London was down to 460 or something. And today, once we announced our exports and have, started exporting, it's gone up to 520 plus. What is the $60 rise when India is coming in with 1 million tons, especially whites? What are these factors that actually impact world prices across the board? That's an interesting thing, because most millers here would really want to understand. They understand the Indian market, but they would like to know, how does the world market move like this and so fast?
I mean, most of this rally we have seen in the recent week or so has been driven by the stronger currency in Brazil. That was one of the major factors, and obviously, funds starting to cover their short position, in a small way. But more for a picture, given that our 1 million tons of quota is valid until September 2025. Claudiu talked about the supply side problems. We have various views on the Thai and Indian crop. What will decide the world prices in particular will be the demand side problems. What is China going to do? We have seen on several occasions they have been importing, even when the import ARB has been negative in the past. What will Indonesia do? Because that was one of the surprising factors last year, where we lost about 300,000-400,000 tons of demand compared to market expectation. These two countries together can swing your S&D and even your trade flows by a good 1 million tons during the course of the year. It is more, to me, from a distance, it's more a demand-driven view on flat rice. Because supply, you will take time to understand what Brazil is going to provide over the next 7 to 8 months. You pretty much know the Indian crop and Thai crop for the current season. It's more a demand-driven view. What are China and Indonesia going to do over the next 6 months? China in Q2 and Indonesia more in Q3 and Q4. So that is a bit policy-related, a little difficult to answer.
Okay, Vamsi. Deepinder, another question for you. How much do climate impact? Now we're getting into all these major climate change issues across the world. How does this impact sugar prices in the short term and in the long term? I mean, how do you see that happening across? I mean, you've been around a while and, we see a lot of issues on climate change. And now you have Mr. Trump there who says nothing to do with climate, no more Paris Agreement, you drill, baby, drill, How is all this changing climate and then that climate affecting sugar prices?
When we look at climate change, we think of temperature, rising temperatures, and erratic rainfall. We are seeing the impact of erratic rainfall right now in Australia, where we have wet season. Apart from the labor issues, we have wet season. The harvesting is delayed. We have seen the impact of erratic rainfall here in India itself, where Maharashtra farmers couldn't plant. So there, a study done here in India, in Tamil Nadu, the researchers have linked rising temperatures inversely impact the cane yields. In cane yields, and not just cane yields, recoveries as well. When we think of rainfall, we have to look at sea surface temperatures. And since 1960, the frequency and strength of deviation from the normal has increased drastically, and that brings on El Nino and La Nina events and related rainfall wherever you look at the world. In an El Nino year, the impact is different in northern hemisphere than southern hemisphere. But then there is an impact on rainfall. So invariably, rainfall would impact the sugarcane supply in terms of and then yields. And going behind these, the impact of rain and temperature is on cost of cultivation. We may have to frequently irrigate the crops, and countries like Brazil and Australia, they may have to replant their paddocks. Cost of replacing the equipment lost in the weather event, cost of fertilizer. So all these factors are clubbing into increasing cost of cultivation, which would eventually be priced into the price of sugar. So I guess if for an industry which is doing their bit to neutralize the carbon footprint, they are taking the hit from the climate change. And as has been said earlier, particularly in India, like as Honorable Minister said, it's one of the parameters that the government wants to look at is the prices of sugar. And I guess this is something climate change has to be looked at, and the price cost of sugar prices and the raw materials going up. So, yeah.
Thank you. And Kapil, I have a very simple question for you. We have, so many wars going on everywhere, whether it's Ukraine, Russia, or Brazil, Israel and Gaza and all of this. Do these wars or these kind of geopolitical issues really impact sugar prices, or, it doesn't really matter? What is your view on this?
It's not a simple question. Of course, there is a major impact on the sugar flow because of these geopolitical issues which happen. Take for example, I'll start from the oldest one, Venezuela. Venezuela used to be the net importer of sugar. Today, whatever they used to import, they're importing almost 500,000 tons of white sugar less. Same goes for Syria. Because of the war, whatever Syria used to import, they're importing almost 500,000 tons less. Last year, we saw a lot of issues in Sudan, where, Sudan is an importer of around 1.5 million tons of white sugar. We had an impact of almost 1 million tons of flows, which, all these setbacks eventually go back and keep on getting stored at the origin. And eventually it starts impacting the prices, because once you reach a particular threshold level of your stocks, you start discounting the sugar, which we saw happening in Ukraine when the war started and the sugar couldn't flow. The Ukraine started dumping sugar in EU, and because of which eventually EU had to stop. And we saw same Ukraine dumping sugar up to Colombo, $40 below the market. So, yes, because of this, there are price disruptions, and eventually it creates the trade flow disruptions as well.
Oh, okay, thank you. Now, I'm run out of questions, so I can ask the audience. We got another, how many? 10 more minutes? Yeah. Atul? Can somebody give him the mic?
Yes. Here you don't hear anything. Just make a...
This question is to Claudiu and the panel. We in India have a saying, you cannot name the child before the marriage has taken place. How can we start predicting next year's crop now?
Can I take this? Yeah. In analysis, you have to start, right? And then how you start? You start with the acreage. Then how you work with production. You take the acreage compared to last year's. You take then, you consider some weather patterns. If you go with a scenario where the weather is very bad, then you obtain some results. If you go with very, very good weather, you obtain other results. So then the way in the middle is to consider the neutral weather, so like normal weather patterns. So when you take the normal weather patterns, then you put these weather patterns into your model of acreage. So the element is the acreage, the first one, okay? And then you extrapolate and then you obtain the sugar production. This is how you do it everywhere in the world. It's not about only India. But some people, for example, they go too much in terms of, let's say, weather. And that's why, for example, in Thailand, we have now such big discrepancies in numbers for next season because they go ballistic. And we've seen how people going really ballistic in something, they had to come back to a much more normal level. So India really has a big acreage on cane. And why it was this, you know all the reasons, right? So like, okay, good price for the cane and so on and so forth. So the potential is there. Could it be much more than what we have in the estimates? It could be if we have better weather, but if you put normal weather. So now whatever will happen with the monsoon, let's say, there is still a really long way up to the next crop, right? We have June up to September, see how the monsoon is. So what we will lose? The acreage we will not lose, but we will lose parameters. If we lose parameters, like cane parameters, then of course production will be lower. As it was the case this year. We lost this year acreage, but we also lost parameters during time. That's why production is always revised down now. So there is room for that, of course. But everybody now tries to look into perspective. So then the only things that you have now for the perspectives is the acreage or intention to plant in some other countries.
So apart from losing perspective or whatever, you also lose a lot of money if you punt on next year's crop basis discussions today.
I didn't hear.
Okay. Any other question? One last question before. Yes.
No, my simple question is, in the last 5 years, how many times have our estimates been right or wrong? What has been the success factor when we were predicting next year's crop in Indian context?
I think it depends who put it. If somebody was interested in putting some estimates to follow the internal procedures because you have a position, then it was wrong. But if you are impartial, let's say impartial, I think 2 out of 3 works.
Okay. Anyway, Mohan, the last question now.
My question to Vamsi. Vamsi, I just wanted to know about Lamshabang, liquid sugar. What is that?
Sorry, sir, we can't hear you. I don't know. It's a lot of echo here on the stage. We don't
No,
really.
Vamsi, my question to you. Uh, can you tell me what's happening in Lamshabang on the liquid sugar? And has the Chinese allowed import from Lamshabang or not?
Liquid sugar in China, right?
Yep.
Now, what happened? There was a lot of protest in China by the industry since 5 years ago. Stop this, it will kill us. Okay, they didn't, nobody died from that. But the thing is, okay, it was eating into their own sugar and their own industry. Now they stopped it. They stopped it firstly for Thailand, and then they stopped it for other origins too. It didn't pick up yet, but then some traders were so upset that they even expressed and said it was all planned. Why? Because they said, okay, if you stop this, then Thai will have much more volumes, okay, and then prices will fall, so then China can come and buy, right? So that was one of the opinion. I think it was a lot of lobby done by the domestic industry. Will it last? I don't think it will last for long. Probably another 2 months, it's enough for this year, 2-3 months, but they will let it happen. And if they delay 2-3 months again, and then they put it in December already, then this will eat already into this sugar syrup into China. So there will be a bit more room for other imports. But don't forget, we didn't mention China too much today. They will have a higher production this year, which will be at least, let's say, 1 million on year. So they will produce more. So probably this syrup that was supposed to go to China could be replaced by a higher domestic production. Will they need rows? Of course they will need rows. I estimate at least 3 to 3.5 million tons of rows China will have to take this season.
I think we'll close here. Already we are running late, and I would like to thank all the panelists for giving a wonderful session to everybody here. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, gentlemen, for that very interactive and a meaningful session. Thank you once again to all our panelists and our esteemed moderator. May I please welcome on stage Dr. Seema Paroha to please felicitate this esteemed panel. A warm welcome to you, ma'am. Please join us on stage. Let's begin with felicitating our moderator, Mr. Kiran Wadhwana. Can we please have a huge round of applause, everybody? Mr. Kapil Nema, Assistant Executive Director at Dalmia Bharat Sugar. Mr. Deepinder Singh Basra, Commodity Analyst at Green Pool Commodity Specialists. Can we have a little bit more enthusiasm from the audience? Thank you. Mr. Claudiu, Senior Analyst at CovrigAnalytics, Switzerland. Thank you so much for being a part of the conference today. And finally, Mr. Vamsi Nanduri, Senior Sugar Trader at Louis Dreyfus Company. May I please request everyone to join us center stage for a group photograph? Thank you so much. Please have a seat, and I hope you enjoyed the rest of the conference.